Hello again, 7th grade. I just got a rude comment from Lamara. She says she doesn't think I'm funny. So, first off, ouch. Secondly, I guess that means you don't get any jokes in this video. So, sorry. Lamara ruined it for everyone. And I don't know why Lamara says that. Like, every day in school, she would stay in class afterwards and come up to my desk and go, Mr. Bruce, you are so funny. Keep up the jokes. And then all of a sudden, I make jokes on Classroom, and she's like, that wasn't funny. That was lame. Stop making jokes. You're so annoying. So, yeah, rude. Anyways, I won't make any jokes in this video. Hopefully that makes you happy. I feel kind of cruel not doing that because Vanessa and Sophia and Sebastian tell me that they think my jokes are funny. I'm going to have a hard time getting over this. All right, we need to move on to our lesson on the Crusades now. Remember, we're doing this out of order. The order in which your book presents it is fine. I know that you've already read about the Crusades and you've already done the homework and classwork on the Crusades. But we do need to go into more detail because you are going to be tested on this next week. All right? So you'll remember in the previous lesson, the Crusades first happened when the Seljuk Turks, there was a civil war basically between the Caliphate in Jerusalem and the Seljuk Turks. The Seljuk Turks won out. The Seljuk Turks were far more brutal than the Caliphate was. The Caliphate was, I wouldn't say friendly to Christian pilgrims and the Jews who lived there, but they tolerated them. The Seljuk Turks were far more militant and used all kinds of abuse, violence, torture, imprisonment, all kinds of things to persecute Christian pilgrims. And they also started to threaten Constantinople. Remember, the Seljuk Turks get their hands on gunpowder from China, which makes them very formidable. The walls of Constantinople are going to fall. So in order to try to stop all this from happening, Pope Urban II, way over in Rome, decides to create a massive Christian army. So he wants to unite all of Christendom under a single authority and create a massive army to march over to Jerusalem and to essentially seize the Holy Land from the Seljuk Turks, make Jerusalem a Christian-controlled area. Doing that is going to help Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire stay safe. Right? I think Pope Urban's vision here is to unite Christendom in both Europe and the Byzantine Empire into like a massive, not quite global, but like massive intercontinental force. And he sees the Crusades as a way to do this. All right? Now, you've probably heard a lot about the Crusades in like different TV shows and movies and other things like that. A lot of people tend to think of the Crusades in a monolithic way, right? They just have one idea of Crusades as sort of like this massive war that happened a long time ago that was very violent and bloody, and there's a lot of corruption involved in it. The Crusades are far more nuanced than that, right? The Crusades happened over the pontificates of several popes. It happened over the course of several centuries at different points. So there were actually several different crusades, and each crusade was instigated by a different event or had a different goal. Right? Also, I need to circle back on Christian pilgrims. I don't think I really made it clear in the previous lesson what a pilgrim is. A pilgrim is a religious person who travels to a holy site for a spiritual reason. Right? So Christian pilgrims in medieval Europe almost exclusively were Christians who were traveling to Jerusalem for a spiritual purpose. right? So you would want to travel to Jerusalem and the surrounding area to see the holy sites of Jesus' life. So Pope Urban saw the opportunity for a crusade as an opportunity to create peace between the warring kingdoms of Europe, to expand the reach of the Catholic Church, to perhaps unite the Catholic Church with the Byzantine Church, and of course to respond to the pleas of the Christian pilgrims and the Byzantine Emperor. Right? So he launched something called the Crusades. Right? So what is a crusade? Well, in its most basic form, a crusade is a religious war, and Pope Urban's crusade is a Christian religious war, right? And under this first crusade, Pope Urban II becomes the head of a massive Christian army. And in order to encourage people to join the Crusades, there are all kinds of incentives that the Pope offered to people to participate. Right? He wants to build a massive military force that's going to overwhelm the Seljuk Turks and take back the Holy Land for good. Right? So, as Pope, obviously one of the things he's going to do is he's going to highlight the spiritual benefits of going on crusade. And in order to do that, he gives crusaders, the soldiers who are going to fight in the Crusades, a special title. Right? He calls them soldiers of Christ. Right? And he tells them it's God's will that we free Jerusalem from Muslim control, that we return it to Christianity. Right? Now, this first crusade attracted all kinds of people. It attracted nobility throughout Europe, but it also attracted poorer people, including children. Right? So in the first crusade, some of the crusade leaders actually asked children to go and fight in the crusades too. Right? And so now we get into some of the moral ambiguities and the muddy mess that the crusades created. Okay. So other incentives that were provided to the Crusaders, going to Jerusalem, dropping everything and traveling to Jerusalem, which is, for some of them, thousands of miles away, is a really, really big deal. It interrupts your life in a really severe way. So you're going to need a strong incentive to do that, something more than just the Pope asking people to do it. Right? So in order to motivate people to do this, the Pope, the Church said that crusaders would receive something called a papal indulgence. So this is a reward offered by the authority of the Church and the Pope that remits sins in purgatory. Remember, Catholics believe in purgatory, a period of purgation for souls that are saved before they can enter heaven. So a papal indulgence, this is kind of a crude way of describing it. It's kind of like a fast pass through purgatory. That's the idea, right? And so if you're worried about your eternal soul, a great way to feel more secure about it is to go on crusade and to receive a papal indulgence for doing so, right? Crusades are also very attractive to members of the lower classes. Why would the lower classes of Europe, like peasants and serfs, be so enthusiastic about joining the Crusades? Basically because it gives you a chance to reshuffle the deck of your life, right? Being a serf or a peasant in medieval Europe was not pleasant. Right? You were likely locked in under a feudal system. You didn't have a lot of rights. You didn't have a lot of freedoms. You had to stay on the land and work for your lord for the rest of your life. Going on crusade would have been seen as an adventure, an opportunity to break the bonds of serfdom. So basically, for a lot of the lower class members, they saw it as not really having anything to lose by going on crusade. Members of the European upper classes, so these would be barons and other nobles, knights, people like that, they had a lot more to lose, right? They were leaving behind their wealth, their property, their families, right? They had a lot more to lose, and therefore they were more reluctant to join the Crusades. But many of them did go nonetheless. All right, another way Pope Urban II encouraged people to go on crusade is he associated it, he pressed the idea of going on crusade with feudal loyalty. Right? European Christians were very familiar with feudalism. Right? Remember, feudalism is the economic and social system by which you are legally obligated to serve your lord. Right? So Pope Urban II just made a very simple extension. He said, well, since Jesus is every Christian's Lord, that means that if you are a Christian, you have an obligation to serve your Lord however he wants you to. And the way he wants you to now is by traveling to Jerusalem and waging holy war on these Seljuk Turks, right? Defending this Lord's land. Where is this Lord's land? Jerusalem. Finally, the Crusades were also linked with the idea of going on pilgrimage. Right? Pilgrimage is attractive to a lot of Christians. It's like going on, not a vacation, but on a trip, on an adventure. So just like the pilgrims, the Crusaders would sew a cross on their clothes. And one of the stops that all the Crusaders tried to make was Christ's tomb, right? The tomb that belonged to Josephus that he provided for Christ's body after the crucifixion. Right? Now, to try to understand a little bit more about the connection between Christianity and the Crusades, you have to look at the word crusade itself. So the word crusade comes from a Latin word, which means a Latin word crux, right? And crux in Latin means cross. So the idea of going on crusade meant that you were taking the cross. Right? This means you are making a sacrifice. Right? You might be leaving your family. You might be selling your property in order to fund your crusade. You might never return. You might be killed. You might get sick. Anything could happen. This is a real cross that you had to carry, you had to bear. So there's definitely a spiritual dimension to going on crusade. Right? So in Christianity, taking the cross means accepting suffering out of love of God. Right? And Crusaders certainly did suffer. Right? They would call it taking the cross to highlight the spiritual dimension of going on crusade. So Crusaders adopted this symbol here, a red cross on a white field. It's actually still part of the flag of England. If you look at the English flag, not the United Kingdom flag, just the English flag, it's a Crusader's cross. Right? So if you saw this symbol on the clothing or garments of a Crusader, you knew instantly who they were. They were a Crusader. They were traveling to Jerusalem to free the Holy Land from the Seljuk Turks. All right. Pope Urban basically sent soldiers on crusade for 3 reasons. First reason, recapturing the Holy Land and defending Constantinople. He saw it as his responsibility as Pope to do this. If I'm the Pope, I need to protect Constantinople, which is the source, the locus of the Byzantine Christian Church. I also need to recapture the Holy Land and bring it back under Christendom. Second reason, he wanted to expand his power. Right? Being in charge of a massive army is going to increase his power. And the third reason, the one that often gets overlooked, is he wanted to stop infighting in Europe. Right? So the idea was, if I send out 150,000 soldiers on this first crusade, that's how many people were sent out, 150,000 soldiers. If I empty Europe of all these weapons and soldiers, the kingdoms of Europe, the nobles of Europe are going to be far less inclined to actually fight with each other because all of their military might is traveling to Jerusalem. Right? So it's going to help to unite Europe, and it's also going to empty Europe of all of its violent potential, basically. Right? So it temporarily unites Europe under a common cause. All right, we're going to stop there. Next video, I'll talk about what happened in the First Crusade. I'll also talk about the Second, Third, Fourth, and Fifth Crusade. So there's 5 crusades total that we're going to learn about.